Well, welcome to this edition of the 700 Club. Battling for votes in the Battleground States. President Trump and Joe Biden are both targeting swing states in the last 2 weeks of the campaign. Well, what encouraging word did a pastor in Nevada give President Trump about the election? And what is Joe Biden making clear what he wants in addition to the White House? Dale Hurd has that.
President Trump and Joe Biden both went on offense Sunday, with each campaigning in states they're trying to flip on Election Day.
Hello, North Carolina.
Joe Biden was in the Tar Heel state, again criticizing the president for his handling of the coronavirus pandemic.
Experts say we're likely to lose as many as 200,000 additional lives nationwide between now and the end of the year. All because this president cares more about his Park Avenue perspective on the world, the stock market, than he does about you.
Trump barnstormed through Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nevada over the weekend. In Michigan, Trump supporters chanted "Lock her up" as the president criticized the state's governor, Gretchen Whitmer, who pushed back, telling NBC the president is inspiring domestic terrorism. Long lines are already forming at some early voting sites, with over 26 million Americans having cast their ballots. The latest ABC News Washington Post poll shows Biden up by 12 points, the same margin Hillary Clinton held at this point in October 2016. Fearing a repeat of 4 years ago, the Biden campaign warned in a memo to supporters that Donald Trump can still win this race, and we need to campaign like we're trailing. And in the key battleground states where this election will be decided, we remain neck and neck with Donald Trump. Biden attended Mass Sunday in Delaware. Trump went to church Sunday in Nevada, a state he's trying to win this time after narrowly losing it in 2016. One of the pastors said God gave her a word about the president.
At 4:30, the Lord said to me, I am going to give your president a second win. This has three meanings. A win, and you will be the president again.
Democrats are taking no chances. They're set to outspend Trump in Nevada in the closing days by a more than 3-1 margin. But the Trump campaign is hoping to make inroads with the state's Latino voters, where he's pushed his message on the economy and crime. The president also staying on the attack against Biden.
If I lose, can you imagine? If I lose, I will have lost to the worst candidate in the history of presidential politics.
In Michigan Friday, Biden made clear he wants to win more than just the White House.
We can't forget that winning in November doesn't just mean defeating Donald Trump. It means winning back the United States Senate and expanding our majority in the House of Representatives.
With the final debate coming up this Thursday, the president tweeted he's again expecting unfair treatment. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, we'll see how it happens.
Well, you had a weekend that was full, but you always find time to sit with the Lord.
Well,
and just...
I spent a lot of time Sunday praying and trying to straighten out in my mind how prophecy was going to work. And I believe that between me and the Lord and the Bible, I've gotten the timeline of what's going to happen in the next few years. So,
can you share that? Or?
Well, maybe tomorrow.
Oh, I'll come back.
You promise?
Yes, I promise.
I'll do my best. I know everybody would like to know what's going to happen. I'm not going to tell you today. Well, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, very, very interesting. A lot of things that that I believe that the Lord. I was seriously praying on Sunday, and I do believe that I've gotten some word. Well, in other news, rioting breaks out in San Francisco against supporters of President Trump. So what happened? John Jessup has that.
Well, Pat, a group of conservatives called Team Save America staged a free speech rally Saturday to protest against Twitter, which it says censors conservative speech. The protesters wore red Make America Great Trump campaign hats. Several hundred counter-protesters, according to some reports from Antifa, surged into the area. They outnumbered and attacked the people who had already been gathered there. One Trump supporter was taken away in an ambulance. Philip Anderson, a black man who organized the event, was hit with bottles and left with a bloody mouth and a missing front tooth. 3 police officers were assaulted with pepper spray and corrosive chemicals. The San Francisco Police Department stopped the event after counter-protesters began throwing bottles, cans, and eggs. Well, women's marches were also held here in Washington and in other cities around the country, like Chicago and its suburbs, protesting President Trump's nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court and encouraging women to vote. Conservative women also are active this year, this election year, with a new movement hitting the road. It's called Women Fighting for America, and it's undertaking a multi-state Heal Our Land bus tour to fight for the soul of America. Wendy Griffith has the story.
This is the first time in my life I've ever walked out in this kind of faith.
Christy Hutcherson, founder and CEO of Women Fighting for America, says this bus tour was not her idea.
God has called me. He called me in '94 and he said, Christy, you denied me. I called you in 2012 and you denied me again. Are you going to deny me a third time? And I really was bawling and I said, no.
Then God took control, connecting Christy in Jacksonville, Florida, to several like-minded women on a Zoom call, including Seattle native Maureen Cowley and Michelle Swenson from the San Francisco Bay Area.
It was exactly the way I was feeling. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I felt a governmental call, and I just wanted to get involved.
It was a no-brainer because I already knew I was supposed to do this.
The multi-state tour started in late August with an urgent plea for women to put their faith into action.
Mamas are the heart of the home. They're the heart of our communities. We're the heart of America. And right now in America, we have a lot of hurt. We have a lot of chaos. And, you know, we need healing. We are going across every state. We are talking about hope. We are talking about the Constitution. We are talking about the founding of this great nation. We are educating women to understand what the 2 strategic visions are for our nation right now, because we're at a crossroads.
They see overwhelming response at each stop.
I had a woman crying last night at the hotel telling us thank you for what we're doing, and I think just the bravery of stepping out is going to help other women, other people, not just women, get involved in the future of our country.
The group believes prayer, along with action, can help solve racial tensions and lead to possibly overturning Roe v. Wade.
Every individual in our country has dignity and worth because we are all created in the very image of God.
The group's bus tour includes events from Texas to Pennsylvania and will culminate at the National Mall in Washington, D.C., 2 days before the presidential election.
We are called right now. We are powerful. We have a voice, and we are going to be the heart, and we are going to be the movement that literally brings back the nation to God.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Virginia Beach.
Coronavirus lockdowns have taken a heavy toll on the economy and on government spending. The federal deficit hit an all-time high of $3.1 trillion in the 2020 budget year. That's more than double the previous record of $1.4 trillion set 11 years ago in 2009. The deficit came as the government poured more money into stimulus measures to keep the economy afloat during the lockdowns. Analysts warn longer term that too much government spending or too much government debt, Pat, could hurt the economy.
It's not a question of hurt, it's a question of destroy. Listen, you know, like you just can't live borrowing money in an individual. If you go deep and deep and deep into the banks before long own you. And what is it? The borrower is the servant of the lender. But I mean, it's going to get to the point. We have the reserve currency of the world. But when people stop taking our dollar, right now the dollar is still very, very strong. But what will happen when people say enough? But the trouble is there's no engine that I know of anywhere in the world financially that can bail us out. And nobody, I mean, we're talking about $250 trillion of debt throughout the whole world. It's staggering. It's the amount of money that nobody has ever dreamed of. It's so many zeros. And how do we bail ourselves out of it? Well, The answer is we won't. There'll be default after default after default. But right now, the federal government is keeping things afloat, and for that, we all should be grateful. John?
Thanks, Pat. Coronavirus cases are on the rise, but don't look for any more sweeping shutdowns. CBS's 60 Minutes asked Dr. Anthony Fauci how bad things would have to get for him to advocate a national lockdown. Here's what he had to say.
They'd have to get really, really bad. First of all, the country is fatigued with restrictions. So we want to use public health measures not to get in the way of opening the economy, but to being a safe gateway to opening the economy.
The U.S. is now reporting more than 50,000 new cases a day. Some experts warning that a third surge is underway, and worldwide, the total number of cases is now over 40 million. Well, turning overseas to Israel, after a 4-week intense lockdown, the government began lifting restrictions as new coronavirus cases dropped substantially. But as CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell reports, Israel is not out of the woods yet.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spread the news that Israel would exit lockdown for the second time.
This time, we're leaving the lockdown carefully and responsibly, exactly according to the plan proposed to us by the experts and by the Ministry of Health.
As the limit on movement lifted, some businesses reopened, while daycare and preschool for children up to age 6 resumed. Restaurants are once again allowed to expand from just delivery to offering takeout. At Jerusalem's Western Wall, Jews are now allowed to pray in sections of up to 20 worshipers, but not everyone is included.
In the red cities, we will keep the shutdown until they too reduce their morbidity data and these cities turn green. I call on the ultra-Orthodox public to follow the guidelines.
The red cities are communities where the ultra-Orthodox Haredim live. While they make up only 12% of the Israeli population, their infection rate has been as much as 4 times higher.
Haredi life is very much based on the community, on community events of coming together at the synagogue multiple times a week, as much as 3 times a day, many community events, large weddings, large families, large family events. All of these contribute to a very high level of social interaction.
During the recent holiday season, with its high emphasis on prayer, police closed dozens of synagogues, not abiding by the health ministry regulations. In some cases, residents turned violent, throwing rocks and rioting against police. Expert Rabbi Eliezer Isakovitz tells CBN News many Haredi communities try to keep the rules, others don't.
Some of the more extreme and insulated groups, and they really try to avoid having anything to do with the state. So naturally, when the country comes, when the government comes and starts giving out these instructions about what to do and what not to do, these extreme groups just ignore the government instructions.
Restrictions in those areas remain in effect until midnight Wednesday. And finally, some good news. Israel's tourism minister told an annual Christian media summit that Israel is taking advantage of this downtime for renovations to be better prepared for Christian pilgrims when they return.
We are waiting for the day the skies open and flights to the Holy Land resume. Israel's ties with the Christian world are unbreakable, not even by pandemic or an economic crisis.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. Pat, back to you.
Amazing, isn't it? Well, we pray for them. But, you know, I don't want to denigrate anybody's religious beliefs, but some of the ultra-Orthodox, they are picking up habits because one of their rabbis in Russia dressed that way. He wore a hat, or he wore his hair in ringlets, or he dressed it. You know, it's nothing to do with the Bible. But, of course, we want to honor their religious practices, whatever they happen to be. But we just realize that stuff isn't in the Bible. And we honor their faith and their dedication. And, of course, we are pro-Israel all the way up and down the line. So we pray for Israel. We're supposed to always pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Blessed are they that love thee. And we do that. So we pray for Israel. But thank goodness they're coming out of this thing. And it's so important we'll talk tomorrow when I talk about some of the things that are going to be happening. I'll mention about what, because Israel is going to play a key role in the future years. All right.
All right. We look forward to that.
Okay.